verification. So PNW BOCES, PL on the go. The purpose of PL on the go sessions are to draw on the incredible strength and expertise that we as a community of educators possess, and to provide a forum where we can share, network, and support each other. Each 1 hour session, but in this case, we're going to try to shoot for about a half an hour session, is designed to inform, inspire, and invigorate you as we all work, share, and learn together. We will assume the best of all of the participants within this group. We will share as no one is the expert. So by all means, if you do have a question, again, you can use that hand raise function and Linda will chime in and we can try to answer your question, or you can prompt your question in the discussion box. We will participate in the discussions and support each other in our sharing, and we will mute our microphones when we are speaking, or when we're not speaking rather, and we will all have fun. At the end of the day, you know, these are trying times. This is as much about community and collegiality as it is about delivering good instruction and sharing best practices across our group. So without further ado, I'm going to actually go and share my screen, and we'll pull up the lesson. So there we are. So here's our lesson right here. So again, we are looking at our K2 lesson on community, but we're going to be focusing in on kindergarten for today and kind of stepping you through our thought process here. Remember, this lesson is not necessarily a lesson that has to be taught exactly as it is. This is just a repository of components of a mini unit, and you can certainly take what you want, you can modify, you can add to, you can segment it out whatever way you want. I've had emails from teachers that were thinking about doing this over the course of 5 days, teachers that were going to do it 10 days, teachers that were going to do it in a synchronous fashion, meaning teaching it in real time to a class, teachers who are going to record sessions, teachers who are going to turn it into packets. And so by all means, whatever works best for you and your students, please feel free to use the resources in that modality. So the key ideas that this lesson hits on are K1, K4, and K6. And for those of you that are familiar with the social studies framework, which I'm going to pull up right now, you'll see that K1 talks about the idea that children's sense of self is shaped by experiences that are unique to them and their families, and by community experiences shared by a community or nation. So certainly all of the activities in here touch on that idea that we are in different communities. So whether that community is the family that a student finds themselves in, their classroom community, or the larger community, the particular instances that we're finding ourselves in right now are certainly going to shape our children's viewpoint on the world. And so this touches on that. The second key idea that it touches on, which is K4, I'm going to scroll down so everybody can see it. Children and adults have rights and responsibilities at home, at school, in the classroom, and in the community. And so again, as we think about the unique circumstances that we find ourselves in, this lesson touches on the idea that we all have unique responsibilities, we all have rights that exist within those different spaces, and it also talks a lot about the different important people that keep communities safe. And as we walk through the lesson, you'll see that there is that component as well. Let's go down right now to K6. Maps and globes are representation of the Earth's surface that are used to locate and better understand places and regions. And again, there is an explicit component of this lesson. It's found in the second part, which talks a little bit about cartography, the idea of how a globe and a map is different. Again, to kind of make students spatially aware of how things are organized around them, because we are wanting students to jump into community here, but part of that is kind of understanding the layout and the physical structures that do exist within their community spaces. So I'll toggle back over to our lesson. So our overview here, connecting students to the communities they belong to is critical at this time. Students belong to many different communities. These communities include their families, schools, towns, cities, states, nation, and the world. And again, as you walk them through this lesson, I've done this lesson a couple times with second graders. I have a second grader and a nursery schooler at home, and did some virtual lessons. It was really important to kind of step them through the different spaces that they exist in. Oftentimes when we ask a student, where they live, they'll either, turn around and they'll give you their entire address, or they'll say the state, or they'll say the town. But an important concept in geographic reasoning is to understand that all those spaces can exist within each other. So to kind of tease that out is a critical aspect of this. Everyone has an important role to play in a community. People in communities have many different roles and jobs. It is the job of everyone in the community to keep everyone else safe, helping students to see the link between social isolation, their role in the community, and safety will assist them in understanding the needs for social isolation. That is one thing that I would want to point out. In my time with second graders and even in my time with my nursery schooler, we've had those conversations. So I think that if you are going to connect with your students, and whether, again, you're doing that through synchronous instruction or asynchronous, if you're doing Zoom calls, if you're doing any kind of technology check-in with your students, they're going to want to talk about the elephant in the room and the fact that you are separated. My one caveat would be that in terms of using any technology, please just make sure that that technology is approved by your district. I know that there are companies that are sharing all sorts of great opportunities and all sorts of great apps. They may not all be compliant with New York ed law. So I'd really encourage you to just be cautious, and before you actually engage in technology that's out there, unless it's been pushed onto you by your district, I would just make sure that it does fit within your district's policies and, again, fits under New York State ed law. And again, exploring the structures of their community further will help them to continue to connect to the broader world. So again, we are going to validate and understand that we are in a situation where we are isolated, but we do want students to think big and globally and think beyond the four walls that they might find themselves in right now. So as we go through the lesson, again, 1 and 2 really focuses in on the ideas of helping students to equate themselves with what maps look like, the purpose of maps. Me on the Map is a recorded reading of a book from YouTube. And then you go on to playing the videos of Know Your Globe and the Geography song, which talks about globes versus maps, because again, that is a key idea that's found across the K2 grade band. The other thing that I would encourage is to have that discussion about how technology has changed what maps are for us. So very rarely will students that age have seen a map, a paper map in a car. You know, they're going to talk about Waze, or they're going to talk about Apple Maps, or whatever other app their parents use to navigate from one place to the other. And that's another example of a map, but that's a map based in technology. So you may get answers or questions around that. The third part of our lesson is the idea of modeling a map of a neighborhood. And this can be any neighborhood. It doesn't have to be that you have to find the accurate map of the location around your school. Again, it's any kind of map that is going to show what we're looking for. I call it a bare bones map. I'll just toggle over it and it'll bring up a really tiny little picture of it if Google will cooperate. There we go. And you can see right here, it's just a grid map. It shows very basic houses. It shows a library, a police station. It's got a road. It has a compass rose. The one thing that is missing from this map is a good key. And so we do want students to know and understand that keys are important. So you could point that out to the students as well, because in the next step where we're going to actually ask them to produce their own map, one of the requirements is going to be a key. So I would say that, again, if you're going to deliver this synchronously, or if you're going to record yourself, or if you're going to give tips or instructions for parents to utilize this at home, that I would just make sure that you point out that there is no key on this map, or feel free to offer a different resource that has a key. But we wanted to keep a really plain and simple map, something that's not overwhelming, something that a kindergartner would be able to access. So when we designed this lesson, one of the things we were thinking about is an equity lens. You know, you all represent districts across New York State and beyond. You all have different needs. You all represent different communities. We have to assume that students' households are going to represent a wide variety of resources. And so when we designed this, and I'm going to let Linda speak to the technology in a second, we wanted to make sure that any of the tasks or activities within this could be completed with or without technology. So number 4, which you see here highlighted in yellow, is our map activity. And we really want to encourage creativity here. So whether the student goes ahead and produces a flat map on a piece of paper, only has pencils, sketches something out, whether they're able to find boxes and create a 3-dimensional one, if they're going to use Legos or blocks or Matchbox cars, if they go outside and they find twigs and they turn them into trees, we really want to leave a very broad and wide open idea of requirements here. The way that students choose to spatially represent where they live really is going to be dependent on what they have access to. And so I would just really encourage you to leave this as wide open as possible, to encourage creativity. If they want to use clay to make buildings, I mean, let them go for it. It's also the idea that there's a big arts and crafts component here. And so if we can have students engage in that, there's a strong social emotional component to that as well. And we know that our little ones, you know, we're 10 days in at this point being isolated. Our little ones are probably needing a little bit of an outlet and a creative outlet. So I would really encourage you to allow them to stretch themselves, to think outside the box, and to be creative in representing their community. I'm going to turn it over to Linda now, and Linda's going to talk about the Creative Community Map template that she built.
I'm not going to pull it up, right, Greg?
I can pop it up for you if you want me to, and then I can kind of just walk through it if you'd like.
I didn't know if this was what caused the problem yesterday.
You know what? I think you just make reference to it, and we'll talk through it. I think that's a good
basically, since this is a kindergarten group, I'm not really sure that this activity is something that is that appropriate for kindergarten without parent guidance, because basically it's a Google slideshow that has different icons on the map, and kids can copy and paste them from one slide onto the map and create their own map. So it's good for kids who really enjoy technology and enjoy that kinesthetic action of, you know, cutting and copying and pasting. And it would just be a different type of activity. But other kids might really prefer to do this by drawing or pasting and cutting, etc. So as a teacher, you might want to pull it up and look at it and see how it works, and then decide on your own whether you think this is something you might want to push out to parents to work on with their kids. I think the kids enjoy it. I know from experience when I worked in Lakeland that kids did like these drag and drop activities in Google Slides, but I was mostly working with grades 2 and higher. So for kindergarten, I'll let you be the judge in deciding whether this is appropriate. If you have your own kids, let them try it and see if it's something you might have kindergartners do.
Linda, can you just speak really briefly though, in terms of, because I know a few people had questions about making a copy of it and how it's able to be edited. Can you just speak very briefly to that?
Yes. So when you open it up, it's going to be a view only slideshow. So if you are a Google district, or if you are very familiar with Google, you'll know that when you open something view only, you can't do anything to it. So you simply go to the file menu and choose file, make a copy, and then save it to your own Google Drive. And then you'll be able to do anything with it that you like. You can even edit it if you had different questions that you wanted to ask. So you can add to it. You can make it more robust than it even is now. You could add your own icons. But like I said before, I think it's a fun activity. I've seen students engaging with these. But again, kindergarten, I'm leaving you as the arbiter on whether or not it's a kindergarten appropriate activity to do with your kids.
Thanks so much, Linda. And again, this is really just the way that we envisioned it. You are the experts on your particular group of students. And so thinking about the learning strengths and maybe the struggles that some of your students have, again, adjust these as you see fit. Our recommendations were that the map should include the community name. And again, that should be, it could be the town. But, you know, I had a teacher that said, could I let my students, if they wanted to do the state, could they do the state? That's fine. I mean, again, it's the idea of having students, right? It's got a purpose, right? But this is not going to be a scale model of the town or city that you live in. This is a way for students to express themselves and have some understanding of where they live. So be flexible there. Places, buildings, locations, and there is going to be a component later on that talks about labeling those. Compass rose, so we want to talk about our cardinal directions, and also the idea of a very basic key, so students can start to understand that as they go through and they practice that important skill of geographic reasoning, right? It's one of the 6 practices from New York State, that they begin to kind of think a little bit about that idea of where they are, how they're located, what spaces around them look like, and then how a key can provide really helpful, useful information that can be used to help them explain that space or to better understand that space that they find themselves in. There also is in here a community scavenger hunt on Google Earth. I'm going to go along with what Linda said there. We're not going to open that because, again, bandwidth is very precious right now, and this is going very well. Knock on wood so far, and the last thing we would want is to get ourselves booted off. But again, it's a great activity that looks at how different communities can look and feel very different. And again, you may have a kindergartner who's extremely tech savvy. You know that the parents are going to be around. You know they have access to technology. Great activity for that student. You may have another student that doesn't have the access to technology. Maybe mom and dad are splitting shifts right now. We understand, again, that households could be very chaotic at this time. Not probably appropriate for that child, but a great enrichment activity that a parent or family could take a step further. Or if you as a teacher were teaching synchronously, you may open up and then share in that space with your students. All right, part number 5. Imagine that you are a tour guide and someone is visiting your community for the first time. Think, draw, discuss, and or write about the following questions. What will you tell them about your community? What will you show them about your town? What makes your community interesting? So again, the idea that they've now spatially created their community, they've begun to explore that, they're thinking about maps. Now it's the idea of starting to tell somebody or share good thoughts about what their community looks like or what it feels like. We have them create a poster to welcome people to their community. You can even have someone in your family record a video of you welcoming someone new to your community. For the kindergartners, you'll notice what our expectations were in orange. Again, please modify this. The idea being that they would produce drawings, and they could produce several small drawings that could then be put together as a larger poster of important places to them in their community. Have the student write the name of the place, right? So they are getting that fine motor skill practice besides the drawing of actually writing out the place. And then an adult could ask the student why they chose the place and could scribe it for them. So the idea of being cognizant of our kindergartners, and we may have some kindergartners that are writing in sentences at this point, they then maybe could write that one sentence. For our struggling writers, the idea of just having them write the name of the place and then having an adult assist them if needed. And then the follow-up questions: why did you choose to tell the visitor about blank in our community? Can you explain to me why that is important to you? What are the most interesting parts of the community for you? Are they the same for everyone? The one thing I would say is if you're turning this over to parents and you're trying to turnkey this as an activity that parents are going to lead substantial components, I would just point out to parents that there are large numbers of questions to ask embedded in this. And that's not to say that our parents aren't engaging with their children and aren't asking good questions, but we know that sometimes looking at a lesson plan that's 4 pages long could be intimidating or overwhelming. It can be that way for us. So just really point out to the parents that there are those embedded questions, but make them feel free to continue the conversation with their children. Because again, we want them to be excited about this. We want our kindergartners, right, who are just balls of energy usually, to really have some enthusiasm here, be proud of what they create, and be proud to share what they love about their community. The next transition in the lesson goes to the idea of community helpers and understanding that there are different responsibilities and rights for people within the community. So we have a Brain Pop Junior, which is great because it is accessible for kindergartners all the way through 2nd grade. It does break down some key jobs and ideas within a community. And then the follow-up questions: think about the important places and buildings you put on your map. So now it's the idea of, hey, you watched this video, you thought about people, now start to connect those people, right, to the buildings that you had put on your map previously. What people live or work in these buildings? How do different people in our community help each other? And why is it important for different people in the community to help or take care of each other? And again, this is going to be a great place where you can insert the idea or start to insert that idea that what we're doing by isolating ourselves is a form of taking care of each other. Right? The undercutting theme with these helpers is the idea that they promote safety and wellness and welfare for others. And the students are actually taking on that role themselves by isolating themselves from other people and protecting people who maybe have compromised immune systems. I'm going to turn it over to Linda and let her talk a little bit about the technology in this part, and then I'll talk about if you were not going to utilize technology here.
Okay, again, this is it's kind of like it's a Google slideshow called the Community People and Places, where students get to pick a specific community and the people that work there and answer some questions and write about the people that work in those particular communities. It has 3 or 4 questions with it, and again, I would say that for kindergarten, um, it's it's totally in your ballpark as to whether you think this is appropriate. It is very kid friendly. You could choose, once you're back in your classrooms and you wanted to use this with your students and you would be monitoring it more closely, you could have, each student create a particular page, and then you'll end up having almost like a booklet that you could show as a slideshow to the whole group. But again, it is user-friendly. You will have to make a copy of your own to use it. All of the pages link to one kind of table of contents where they have individual communities listed, individual communities or places in the community, like the fire station, the police station, the library, and there is even a place for students to add their own idea if it's not included on there, the hospital, veterinarian, etc. So again, leave it up to you as to whether you think kindergartners would be working with this and easily.
Thanks so much, Linda.
You're welcome.
And again, our thought process here is that if you're not going to utilize technology, this is something now that gets added to the map they already created. So utilizing Post-it notes or index cards, or if they have a sheet of paper at home, cutting it into smaller pieces. Students would produce descriptions. Our thoughts were that have the students look at the map they made, pick 3 to 4 places that are on the map that are in their community, and then have the students write the name of a person that is connected to that place. So for example, fire station, firefighter. An adult would then ask the student why the place is important, and the adult again would then scribe that answer down. So firefighters keep us safe. So again, the idea now of helping students to link those community helpers to the locations that they felt were important within their community, and to then again spatially orient them to their understanding of the world and the community around them. So again, the follow-up questions for that: can you tell me about the descriptions you added? Can you take me on a tour of your community? And that should be kind of the culminating idea here. Walk me through, and whether that's something that can be shared out with a class if you are all meeting together, although I cannot imagine a kindergarten class in a non-chaotic way sharing out their communities, but maybe this will be something that when you do come back together, hopefully before the end of the year, that you are able to recongregate and have students bring in and share out. And at the very least, I think to really make the students feel good about what they produced, and to show them kind of, the idea that all this hard work produces something, encourage parents, encourage people within the household to validate all of that work and to allow the students to take them on a quote unquote tour of their community. The optional extension activity would be that now that students understand their community and have started to think about that, and with the idea being that they already are helping the community by isolating at this time, what would be something that you would want to do in your community? Think about the spaces you created. What's something positive that you could do out in the community when all of this is over, when you're able to go back out, when, it warms up and we get towards summer and suddenly we don't have to worry about being socially isolated anymore? What's something that you really think your community needs that you could step up and do? And it doesn't have to be something for a kindergartner that gets carried any further than that, but New York State really is pushing that idea of action civics. And we do want young people thinking about the idea that really small, actions can have a huge impact. We always want them to dream big, but we also want them to understand that their own personalized individual actions are really important, really do have value. And this would be great as a wrap up for an entire class, as a share out. You could ask students to post, ask parents to send in what the students did and somehow post that and share that out with the rest of the class if you wanted to do that. Again, just make sure that if you are using any kind of technology, that again, it does conform to your district's approved policies and also New York State law. And then of course, at the very end, the wash your hands song. I know kindergarten teachers live in the land of washing hands, but certainly now more than ever, that's a really important concept. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing, and we have a few minutes left. And we just kind of wanted to open up the floor to any questions that anybody might have in terms of this.
I did respond to a couple of questions here,
Sure.
Greg, came up. One was about where this lesson is available, so we could show that at the
Yeah.
very close of the webinar. And someone else asked about, um, are there going to be any more lessons, or is the expectation that teachers using the resources share their lessons with each other? I did put in the chat box that on Monday I'll be doing another webinar on just how to take some of these lessons and provide some of the content online for your students. But again, as kindergarten teachers, you may or may not feel that that's an appropriate way to share information or social studies with students, but you're certainly free to join that. I'll be showing you some tools that would let you interact with vocabulary with your kids, and different drag and drop type of activities. So
In terms of more lessons going forward, I mean, a couple things. Again, I think that this lesson, if you really structure it right, this is a multi-week lesson. Especially as we think about the idea that we have to be very flexible with scheduling. And, I don't want to speak out of turn, and I don't want to say, whether your district is expecting you to have those synchronous activities or asynchronous activities, how you're meeting or checking in with students is going to look very different for everybody. I would just say, in the back of your minds, again, going back to that equity lens, just be very flexible whenever possible. Even if there is technology in the household, we have large numbers of parents that are working from home. They may have one laptop, and it then becomes the burden of, well, I'm supposed to be logged in remotely to my job from 8 to 4, but, my child also needs to access their education. And so as we kind of try to work through this, because this is all brand new territory, I just encourage you to be very flexible. And really space this out and chunk this out in a way that makes it doable for families and for our students. Our goal is to kind of keep rolling these mini units out. We don't have a gigantic team of writers, right? In a back room somewhere. The curriculum is being written right now by myself and Linda and Nancy McGuire. And then teachers that we know within our communities are kind of giving us feedback on it. We're working right now on a grade 3 through 5 mini unit that's going to deal with human rights and looking at New York State government and looking at global governments during the pandemic. But that's what's being produced right now. And then we would probably then roll out a 6 through 8 banded lesson. So if we are talking about an extended amount of time that we are out, I would guess that not next week, not the week after, but by the following week, we would want to have another K2 lesson come out, but don't quote me on that. But we're going to try to get these resources out to you folks, because I know that this is a stressor and a struggle for all of you. And in any way, shape, or form that we can support you, we certainly are happy to do that. Any other thoughts or questions?
there was one asked if there was a pre-K curriculum, and I answered that there is not a pre-K curriculum.
There isn't. I mean, listen, we're operating off the K-12 framework for social studies. I will tell you, my one daughter goes to nursery school, and I shared this with her nursery school teachers, and they're teaching the nursery school class remotely through Zoom. So community is kind of a universal linkage. So if you're pre-K, again, I think you just adjust and adapt it. I think that there's enough of a band in terms of how the resources are stacked, in terms of developmentally for students. But I think that there's enough there where you could use this within a pre-K classroom or a nursery school classroom, because it was interesting. My one daughter was, Zooming with her nursery school teachers, and there's this lesson being taught. And I was like, oh, I recognize that lesson. And the nursery schoolers were responding really well to it as well. And so now my second grader and my nursery schooler are building a map together. One of them made a Duplo library, right? The little one made a Duplo library, and the older one made a park out of her Legos. And they're just kind of scavenging around the house. And they did the technology one, and they really liked it, but they did like the scavenger hunt aspect of kind of cobbling something together. And I would imagine that map is going to probably occupy our kitchen table pretty soon.
Yeah.
But that's part of this too, right? The creativity, scavenge around the house, see what you can find, put something good together. encourage that, because kids need an outlet right now. And as much as all of us are probably, if we have children, trying to take them outside and keep them active, that may not universally be happening. So even giving them that activity to go and search around their house and to find components to build this map is also going to definitely be really useful.
Yeah.
So what
Can
I am going to
share
do—
my screen a minute and show them where to
Yeah,
find it?
go ahead. Sure, please. So Linda's going to pop up her screen right now, and she's going to show you where on the SSELA website where you can actually find the lessons. If you actually Google SSELA, it usually comes up as the first one for those of you that may not access it that often. If you look right there, you can see that there is, along the header, an online learning.
So I'm not even logged in, you can see right now. So you can get this lesson even if you're not logged in. So you just click on online learning, and you'll see here that it says K-2 mini unit lesson plan. And it's available in 2 formats. So if you're not a Google person, there's simply a PDF. And if you are a Google person, here is the lesson plan that you just saw. And I just want to let you know that indeed all of these documents are hyperlinked right on the document, so that you don't have to open anything else up. So if you wanted to do any one of these activities, you would simply click on it, and here's the example of that community book, and it would open up. Now, since I'm the owner of this, it came right up, but for you, it would say view only, and then you would simply click on File, make a copy of the entire presentation, and then you will have it on your own computer. So this is the slideshow that we talked about the important people and places in the community. So all of the, like I said, everything is available right here. You won't have to go anywhere else. I keep losing my toolbar up here. Anyway, I'm gonna stop sharing now, Greg, because I'm sharing things that I don't need to be sharing, right?
So a couple things before we do go. Another thing that I wanted to share with all of you, and again, this is about community, and I know Linda made mention of this. I would encourage you, there's strength in numbers, and you are kind of having to, reinvent the wheel to a certain degree here, but collaborate with your colleagues. And whether that's within your building, whether that's within your district, if you do have a region where there's a strong connection, I know in our region, we have a collegial circle that's led by elementary social studies teachers, and it's a really strong group. The amount of resources that have been kind of flying back and forth between the teachers there has been really powerful to see. But certainly, if you come up with something that's great, like, share it with us. So we had provided our emails at the beginning, and then I'm happy to then share it or to embed it into the lesson, because there is no one expert on this. And so if you find a great way for your kindergartners to connect to community, I would say please share that out. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing it out with all of us, at least share it with your colleagues in the building, because it is really important that we all stick together here. So in the chat right now, I am just putting the link. This will take you to our current schedule for the remainder of the week. So we do offer continuous professional learning, not just sessions on SSELA. And then we will be posting next week's schedule, which is also going to have a couple of specific social studies ones. Linda mentioned that she'll be leading a session on Monday, looking at technology. I'm going to be leading one probably on Thursday morning, talking about discussing tough topics with elementary, middle school, and high school students, really focusing in on what's going on around us with the pandemic. And so I would really encourage you to take advantage of that. These sessions are all drop in and leave. It's almost like a mini ed camp. So, nobody's feelings get hurt if you can only stay for 15 or 20 minutes. And we just really looking forward to continuing to work with you and to serve you as best as we can. And we will continue to send out those resources. And please just let your 3 through 5 colleagues know that we are grinding away on that next lesson. And as soon as it is done, we will get it out there. We just want to make sure it's high quality, and we want to make sure that it really hits 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade material. And the other reason for us doing this is that you've got the broad expanse of students in your classroom. And so the thought process is what might be accessible for one kindergartner, another kindergartner might be ready to move on to like what the 2nd grade material is. So look at those 1st and 2nd grade materials that are within this lesson and use them as enrichment as you feel that you need to. So I'm going to stick around for about 5 to 10 minutes. If people have specific questions or want to chat, that's fine. But other than that, I wish you all a happy afternoon and continued health. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to Linda or I if we could be of any assistance to you. All right, have a wonderful day.